On today's episode of The Intangibles, we'll be kicking things off as always with the play of the game. At 6:30, we'll choose the Hottie of the Week and the Little Bitch of the Day. At 12:29, we'll catch up on the Las Vegas Challenge, the Prodigy lawsuit against Gannon Buhr, and Natalie Ryan versus DGPT and PDGA. And finally, at 44:07, we'll play Birdie, Bogey, or Par. Nice, dude. Welcome back to the Drop Zone. Drop Zone. With Matt and Kenny. This is the Intangibles. Disc golf is back, baby.
Woo-hoo!
How does it feel?
Good. It's nice to... I mean, honestly, even in the off-season, I think there was plenty of good content to absorb. I feel like I wasn't lacking for... I mean, not that having the tournaments back is fantastic. Yeah, it's been exciting.
But you weren't starving for disc golf related things in the meantime.
It's not like I feel like the NFL season for me is like one of the few things where, and I think they make it a scarcity thing, and it works. You know,
It definitely does. I think that's kind of not by design. It's just how it works out because the season is so rough on the players. You have to have a huge off season. You can't have that many games, and that's kind of weirdly what makes it so compelling. Is you don't get that much of it, really.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
That being said, I kind of love the pattern because this is my first. We're almost to 1 full year of me watching disc golf. And I like the pattern. I like the off season. It feels like just the right amount of time before I'm like, all right, let's get back to it. So I'm enjoying it.
I'm happy to hear that.
So let's kick things off for this new season with the play of the game.
Poke chat, poke chat, poke chat, poke chat.
And you can lead us off here, Matt.
All right, I'm going to. This is going to be like a classic Intangibles style play of the game. I'm going to give it to
you.
To RNG, to the randomness that happens specifically in video games is what I'm thinking of in this case. So you and I started we started a new run of Bloodborne recently. You had been playing with, or I don't even know if you've been playing with Sally or just kind of going along, if that makes sense, like riding along with them, but. Regardless, we started a new game, and you made a challenge when we started it. The challenge was speed run through the Cleric Beast. Whoever gets through it first wins. And you got the shit end of the stick with the RNG that night. It was not working out for you. And I had the same thing happen to me like a few nights later playing some other portion of the game. So it sucked for me, but that night the RNG was the player of the game for me.
It was the player in fucking me over. What you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. I the entire time we were playing, I was talking about how you were going to win because you'd been playing, you'd been watching recently, you had an advantage, this and that, and then it didn't work out that way.
Yeah. I would say more, but I'm reserving some of my comments for a segment coming up in about 2 minutes. So
can't wait.
I'll save my comments for then. My play of the game nominee. You're gonna call me crazy. Alden Harris gets my play of the game nomination.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, Alden Harris's YouTube channel, which I've been watching some of. So, Alden Harris, my first introduction to him really is what put me off him in general. He was on a lead card, I think, very early last year when I first started watching disc golf. And his introduction, when there's a player you haven't really seen much of, they like to do a big spotlight, a big interview with like some B-roll of them throwing discs. And he's part of some weird like Christian disc golfer crew. And so his whole thing at the last half of his introduction was like, I'm just out here hucking discs for God. All glory be to the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. And I'm just like, man, come on. Fuck off. So that really put a bad taste in my mouth with Alden Harris. That being said, I watch a lot of disc golf stuff, so of course I get recommended his YouTube channel among many others. I think he actually has one of the most fun YouTube channels among pro disc golf players out there. Most of them are kind of, I mean, I enjoy all of them, but most of them are pretty vanilla. It's like, I'm playing a course and I'm throwing discs, and Alden like has the most personality of any of them, and he actually seems like a really fun guy to hang out with, and the YouTube channel shows that. So I think he has a good channel, and so I'm going to give him this intangible element. And as a former Christ Max boy myself, I like to think that you can believe in God and be a Christ Maxer and still be cool.
From hater to believer.
Yeah. So I'm a convert for Alden Harris.
From believer to hater to believer. I've not watched a ton of his videos, but the ones that I have are hilarious. He definitely does have a good, and he does videos with Gannon Buhr and a lot of other disc golfers in general. So yeah, I love it.
Very good. All right, so we can move from there quickly to Hottie / Baddie and Little Bitch of the Day. And I'll go first because this is indeed connected to your play of the game.
Am I the Hottie? Let's go.
You are the Hottie of the week in my book, man.
Gosh, woo!
So I as you say, I challenged you. Like, I was like, I really want to play some more Bloodborne. I'm not getting enough of it. Do you want to play? And you're like, oh yeah, I want to play.
Yeah.
And I said, well,
took a lot of convincing.
Yeah. And I was like, well, we have to hurry up through the first portion of the game to get to the point where we can summon each other. So let's speed run it. And you, having been pretty cold on the game, haven't played much, you worked right through and had a smooth run, which was very impressive to me. So you get my Hottie of the week. And I'll go ahead and say our second ever 2-time nominee for Little Bitch of the Day is yours truly, Kenny, for the worst speedrun attempt of all time that night. As you said, it did not work out for me. I played like absolute shit. Just got more and more inside my own head, and it was a slow run when it comes down to it. It was a slow walk to the finish line, to the point where I abandoned that playthrough and started over.
Did you actually?
I did, yeah. Because I was just like, this isn't working. I need a fresh start, which I did, and then I cruised right through it after that. But boy,
the RNG, baby.
I had a bad time, and the reason I'm giving myself a little bitch is not just because I didn't do very well, but I was really complaining a lot while it was happening. So that's why I get little bitch of the day.
Oh man, I'm over here little bitching out on Rom, the vacuous stupid head. I played a couple times earlier today, and still just getting dive bombed by spiders and getting slapped by crystals every once in a while. Ugh.
That's why I like your play of the game to RNG, because especially in these games, it feels like sometimes things go so smoothly and you feel like such a pro, and then sometimes the simplest things will just completely screw you over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I would definitely have thought that I would have had troubles with Vicar Amelia and not with Rom, but here we are. We got through Vicar in one fight, and Rom, I am banging my head against a wall.
We destroyed Vicar Amelia.
Yeah, it took us a couple minutes between the two worlds, and boom, we're out. Bada bing, bada boom, we're gone.
Yeah, and it felt unfair. We were beating her up so badly. Okay, so that's both of mine out of the way. So the floor is yours.
All right. So for my Hottie of the week, I'm gonna give it to Dave Grohl. I'm giving it to Dave Grohl. I read about this. So he showed up to this place called Hope Mission in LA there were some really bad storms recently. And he basically just brought his big ass smoker and a bunch of food, and he cooked food for about 500 people, like over the course of 16 hours, and just did it all on his own money just to do it. And
actual Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, he just out there doing the thing, feeding people because he wanted to. So Dave Grohl he's my absolute hottie of the week.
Damn, that's pretty good. It's too bad that you have to lose to him this week.
Little Bitch. So I wish I had chosen me fighting Rom as Little Bitch. That's very applicable. That would be a good one. But I actually chose Drew Gibson for my Little Bitch.
Interesting.
So we'll probably talk about this in a little bit when we get to the Las Vegas challenge. But in the final round, Anthony Barella threw a very big drive that ends up hitting a volunteer with a rangefinder, somebody who's doing distance work. And they're standing right by a bunker, and the disc actually flops into the out-of-bounds bunker. Probably would have been inbounds had it not hit the guy. So an unfortunate thing. The guy looked like he had the worst day of his life immediately after. Like, if you see it on video, it looks like he's just like collapsing inside.
He instantly knows what this means for him.
Yep. And so Drew Gibson made another stupid, cheap, like not even funny or cool way to like try to capitalize on this by making a sweatshirt that says 4 on it. And he specifically posted about this guy who AB hit with a disc, like trying to sell this disc. So Drew Gibson is very quickly becoming one of my he's getting closer to Nico Locastro on my range of players.
A villain.
Yeah, and I'm giving him Little Bitch of the week.
Did he call the guy out like by name or like by Twitter handle or something like that? Or was it just...
Nothing like that, but he posted a picture of the guy, like the guy holding his head along with the sweatshirt as like his marketing ploy.
Yeah, I don't like that. That's a good nomination. And in fact, I'm going to have to say I do not get Little Bitch of the Day. It goes to that guy, it goes to Drew for sure. I am exempt, thank God.
Not even close, yeah.
Okay, so lots to get to in the breakdown, which will be after just a word from a potential sponsor. Probably Nike, could be Prodigy, if they still have money.
Taco Bell, are you
listening? Yeah. Lone Star, I actually think we could get them to be a sponsor.
I mean, I'll throw your discs, guys. I'll do it.
Oh, let's break it down! Why are you so angry?
All right, so we've got a lot to get to, and I want to start with the thing I imagine we'll have the least to say about, not because it's not important, but because I just don't know how much there is to say, which is Natalie Ryan filing a complaint against the Pro Tour and the Pro Disc Golf Association. So this is something we touched on in a previous episode, the new policies in Pro Disc Golf about transgender players, and specifically it makes Natalie Ryan's life very difficult, and she is filing a formal legal complaint now against these two organizations.
And the reality, as I understand it too, is that it makes it nearly impossible for a transgender woman to do this, because it's not typically recommended by doctors. It's not typically like done at the stage that is required by this new policy for someone to actually be able to qualify, basically.
Right. The things that this policy requires for a transgender woman to compete in the FPO makes it impossible for a transgender woman to compete in the FPO.
Yeah, more or less.
Essentially. So, Ryan is filing a complaint, specifically through the state of California, through its anti-discrimination laws. So I don't know. I don't know how much I have to say about this, other than I don't like the pro disc golf. I don't like these policies that they have, so I think it's good that action is forthcoming. Yeah,
it's interesting that they felt the need to make changes, I think, in my opinion. So they basically adopted the same thing that, I forget what the name of the organization is, but there's like an international swimming organization that adopted, they were the first who did this policy at the elite swimming level, basically, controlling it the same way. And it was very controversial for them too. So I don't really know what prompted disc golf specifically to be, the next sport to do that. It's not, I don't know. It's not like time trials. It's not like just pure athleticism, if that makes sense. There's a lot more to it. And regardless of all of that, it sucks. It's very mean and hurtful to the women who want to compete.
I agree. And I'm fully with you. Like, I just don't know what the pressing urge was to do this if you wanted to do this.
Right.
And, yeah, go ahead.
I do think, so I was reading up and I listened to discgolf.law, the YouTube guy's thing about this a little bit. And I do think it's interesting, and it seems like her case in California could have some legs to it, with the caveat being that basically they would just stop doing tournaments there potentially to get around it, which is, I don't know, it's kind of a lose-lose. It doesn't really solve anything for anybody if that's how it goes. So I don't know. I think it's good that Natalie's pushing them on it and trying to bring some equity to things. And yeah, I guess I'll be interested to see how it does play out.
Yeah, I think I'm happy that there's pressure being put on. I also looked at the same thing, and I don't know. I don't think it would be a good move by these organizations to just say, well, we'll pull out of California, because, looks bad on you for one thing, but also you're just pushing the issue back to open up more, precedent elsewhere where you could just get, sued out of other states, so...
Yep, all of that. Innova is, I believe, based in California, which they're not going to be happy, they're not going to be happy with that kind of situation, so... Yeah.
No. Okay, so I think we are on the board with what our position is on that, and we'll definitely keep you posted as things develop. Into news that I think we have more substantive things to talk about. You and I, just personally, have texted back and forth quite a bit about Prodigy Disc suing Gannon Buhr. So do you want to start by catching people up who don't know what this situation is?
Sure. Yeah. So Prodigy sued Gannon. How did we get there? So Gannon actually signed a new contract with Prodigy. It was a new 2-year deal in 2022. And
when he was 5 years old.
More or less, yeah. Well, he's 17 now. I don't even remember. Yeah, 18 now.
So he was 16 at the time?
Something like that. So he signed a 2-year deal with Prodigy. And Gannon's mom actually contacted Prodigy in November of 2022 asking to be released from the contract that they were under. Prodigy declined. They offered to renegotiate. Things were quiet for a little bit. Eventually, Gannon emailed Prodigy basically saying that he felt they breached the contract in certain ways. So it kind of felt like he had talked to a lawyer at this point based on what I've seen. He's kind of trying to put them in a position where they've breached the contract and he can get out of it. And so after that, there's kind of some back and forth, and we can go through the specifics of it here in just a second. But more or less, Gannon announces, I am leaving Prodigy. And Prodigy then, a day later or whatever it is, sues Gannon. So there was some more back and forth in there. There's some more lawyer stuff. I don't really know how you want to attack all of those details.
Well, the only extra thing I want to get on the table as far as background goes is that you mentioned Gannon's mom, and that's because she's important because he was a minor at the time.
Correct.
So she co-signed the contract. So she's also on the hook for this contract.
Mm-hmm.
So Prodigy sued Gannon. And if you don't know about the disc golf scene, this is really the first instance of this level of lawsuit happening in the pro disc golf scene, right?
Yep, absolutely. There's been some other relatively recent contract breaking that's happened, and it seemed amicable. There's been none of this kind of stuff. It's been, they have a new contract with a new company, the other company's quiet, there's no kind of weird stuff. So this is definitely the most, feels like the most dirty laundry being aired out in a relationship.
Right. Which, as I've investigated in the meantime, the fact that other players are leaving companies, it's assuredly some of those have involved deals behind closed doors, money being exchanged to make this happen, to prevent this kind of lawsuit. So this is the first time that it's really blown up to this level, which is, what makes it one thing that makes it so interesting. I guess the next thing to get into is what were Gannon's complaints that he filed against Prodigy.
Yeah, so he had some very specific, again, these are like the contract breaches that we were talking about. So one thing that he felt was he was entitled to a Rookie of the Year disc. I think technically he was owed 2 discs, and I think he got one, and he was supposed to have input on design of another or something along those lines. Regardless, he did not get a Rookie of the Year disc that he was supposed to get for winning that award, which would have, he would have got commission on those disc sales, so it would have made him more money with them. So he's losing out on sales basically because of that. He complained about
also, like you say, there's another disc, the US DGC disc that they said in emails, I think, that he was supposed to get as well.
Okay, so there were actually 2 he did not get.
Correct.
Perfect. Which other players did get their Rookie of the Year discs. So it's a very fair complaint, in my opinion. He didn't receive regular sales reports, for those discs, which, again, he wasn't able to track or make sure that he's getting paid the proper amount for what his discs are selling. Didn't receive some bonuses for hitting certain performance targets. And one of the most interesting ones, in my opinion, was he focused in on some quality issues that Prodigy has and is kind of famous for, honestly. One of them
quality of their discs specifically, right?
Correct, yeah, quality of their molding. So one of the big things was flashing, and I've seen that posted on the internet for years at this point. Flashing, for those of you who don't know, when you mold something, some of the material will squeeze out of the little cracks and crevices where the mold halves or pieces meet. And depending on how things go, that can be thicker or thinner. And so Prodigy is famous for having kind of sharp and very evident flashing on a lot of their discs, which can be painful, can cut you. It's just not something you really want.
Yeah, or it can require you to sand them down, which is questionable as far as like PDGA stuff goes.
Right, you're not supposed to modify discs, so
right.
Yeah, those were the big ones that I had written down. I don't know if I missed any.
No, I think you're right. Those are the complaints that have been leveraged by Gannon and his legal team.
And I think one of the interesting things to talk about with these, a lot of the evidence that I've seen is not like contract language. It's all text messages or chat messages, or it's kind of these weird outside conversations that it's not really clear how that would hold up in a court of law, and if it really would be like able to be held to that original agreement that they both signed, basically.
Yes. And going back to the YouTube channel you pointed out, discgolf.law, I think it's so funny. Like, what a niche YouTube channel.
And he's got so much business going on right now, man.
It's crazy. He is so prime positioned for what's going on in this industry right now. But he was pointing out, this is a lawyer who loves disc golf, and his channel is all about legal issues in the disc golf world, which business is booming for discgolf.law. And he was basically saying, the only thing among those complaints that actually is valid from Gannon is the bonus.
And they paid him.
They had a 30-day period to fulfill the complaint, which they did, which was a very small amount. It was like $500, like basically nothing, which they did. And so basically discgolf.law is Gannon doesn't have a legal leg to stand on, it sounds like.
Yeah, he screwed up. Honestly, like, he should have negotiated and had a conversation with Prodigy and figured out a number. He should have figured out what the other company has to pay them and done that. And instead, he tried to jump the gun and get out of there and kind of force it. And It's really interesting how it's playing out because Prodigy looks like shit because of this, and I think
Yes.
that their business is going to potentially tank because of this.
I agree.
I think Gannon's probably going to ultimately be fine at the end of this,
I agree with that too.
but he's going to have to deal with some bullshit for a while, and it's going to be distracting maybe for a year or two. And he could have avoided that. So I don't know. It's just not a good situation for anybody, really.
Yeah, I agree. Doesn't work for anybody. Simon Lazot's situation is what Gannon should have been looking for. Like, look, I'm hot shit. I'm worth a lot of money. So whatever company wants to hire me right now, you pay them, and I'll come work for you.
Yep.
But this is the first time a company has really called that bluff. So
It's true.
you can kind of pardon him for thinking I could do this, because honestly, as we say, like, the fact that Prodigy is doing this seems wild to me. Mm-hmm. Honestly, the only thing in my head that makes sense, like why they would do this, is if they're like, we expect to be out of business relatively soon, so we are just going to get as much money out of this person as we can before we go out of business.
It could be, yeah.
Because otherwise it makes no sense. I think players are going to look at the situation and be like, that sucks. Like,
yeah, what new young player are you going to get after this situation, right?
Yeah, nobody. I mean, you're positioning yourself, like, Lone Star has, like, their niche is, we'll hire anybody. So, I mean, what's Prodigy going to do after this? I don't know.
It's a big niche.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's pretty strange. That's the only thing that makes sense in my head, is if they're like, the amount of money we think we could get in a lawsuit against Gannon Buhr is sufficient to overcome the fact that this will make us very unpopular in the space.
Well, one of the really interesting things about Prodigy to me is that, like, there are players who are part owners of Prodigy. Kale LaVisca is a part owner of Prodigy. So, like,
right.
So there is this weird thing going on there too, where clearly he doesn't have 100% control over things, and I don't really know who does have control over things. I think they have a pretty minor stake in the company, but it's hurting them too in this situation. So yeah, it's just this weird kind of vicious situation. It's not good.
It's very strange. This, again, is one of those situations just like the Natalie Ryan lawsuit, where we will keep you posted over time, because obviously lawsuits take time to happen. Although I think hearings are going to happen relatively soon for Prodigy and Gannon, right?
I'm not 100% sure on that. Yeah.
I think one of the most likely outcomes is that there's some sort of settlement and then it's done.
Yeah.
I think that's best for everybody. And definitely Gannon wants to be done with them, I'm sure.
Yeah, the disc golf.law guy said, what was the stat? 97% of this type of case is settled, so it's not very likely that it would actually go through. I think this whole situation is very big and clear evidence for the fact that the best disc golfers need actual agents and legitimate contracts, and like, it needs to be taken more seriously than it is.
And that's like the most positive outcome of all this, is that players are going to lawyer up, basically. Be like, okay, I can't be the next Gannon Buhr.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think the top paid people already are like that, obviously, but yeah, there's a whole other tier of them who need to consider it.
Yep, definitely. All right, and so that brings us to our last bit of news, which is a tournament, by God, the Las Vegas Challenge. First big tournament of the year. We get to see how almost everybody looks, because there are some players, of course, who didn't come to the Las Vegas Challenge. Mm-hmm. And if you're okay with it, I want to start with FPO, because I think the story there is pretty straightforward and simple, which is that a lot of the big players weren't at the Las Vegas Challenge. So Kristen Tatar was not there. Mm-hmm. Paige Pierce was not there. Mm-hmm. Valerie Mondahano, not there. Mm-hmm. And so Katrina Allen just won fairly easily, except tried to give it away a little bit in the final round.
Yeah, she was so far ahead coming into the final round that she played even par and she still won. So
yeah, she's up 8 strokes going into it.
Yeah, I mean, she was very comfortable. She had some great rounds the entire week, and played super consistently. So yeah, she seemed to deserve it, looking at the field out there. Yeah, I do agree. I didn't even think about Kristen Tatar, honestly, which is shameful. I thought about Paige not being there, but yeah, I think the other big things that I saw, Missy Gannon did have some good rounds, and she ended up
That's true.
She ended up having a big round the last day, kind of boosting her up into second place.
Yeah, and Katrina, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, was in control, but that final round did not play super well and let the other players come back in, and Missy did storm up quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Haley King, she looked really good too. I was kind of ragging.
I was happy to see her there.
I was going to say, I was kind of ragging on her when we were talking at the end of the season last year. I didn't feel like I saw her all that much last year. I didn't feel like she was necessarily super in it, if that made sense. And she looked really good for the most part, watching her play. I mean, I think through day 3, she was at 7 under. She was still kind of hanging out there, and I think fell off in the last day. But, yeah.
Yeah, Haley is kind of the Eagle McMahon equivalent in the FPO, where last year, whenever she was around, she looked really good, but she was like battling injuries and wasn't at all the events, so it's hard to say exactly how good she's going to be. Mm-hmm. So it was exciting to see her in this very first tournament put in a good performance.
Yeah.
And then on the MPO side, what's the story there?
What's the story there? The MPO side, I would say Kevin Jones played very, very well. Played very, very consistently. Anthony Barella had a really, really good tournament. He played fantastic. Calvin Heimberg kind of climbed up in the second half of the tournament and then had a good final round.
The last round of this tournament was really fun to watch.
It was, yeah. I honestly, I guess spoilers, Calvin Heimberg was the winner of the MPO, and throughout, I would say 3/4 of the round, I did not expect him to be the one to win.
No, definitely not. I mean, he was barely on the radar. I mean, that's one of the things that makes him a great player, is that you really can't count him out. He's always going to be a contender going into things. Mm-hmm. And it was really exciting in the first season of the year to see him get a win. I don't know if Troy has watched this tournament. I don't think he has, because he's been in Europe the last week or so. Mm-hmm. So when he watches these tournaments, he's going to be thrilled, because he's a huge Heimburg fan.
Hey, me too. I really enjoyed, like I said, I didn't even know he was really in it until the last round, seeing him on lead card, and then even through a lot of that, he was playing well, but everybody else was still there, and he was able to persevere.
He was landing some monster putts in the final round.
Yes, definitely, and he was one of the, I wouldn't say one of the few, but he was willing to run the putts. Eagle was scared. Eagle was not running putts at all. Which kind of baffled me. It seemed odd to me that he was not even pushing it. He was playing super conservative, and he just didn't stand a chance to win playing like that in the first place, and it wasn't really working for him.
Yeah, it's very true. There's a whole conversation around that, and I'm curious what you think. So, with Kevin Jones, he had a lead going into things. And he was kind of the same position that Katrina Allen was in on the FPO side, where he was far enough ahead that if he just played even a little bit worse than he had done in previous rounds, he would have been okay. And I remember watching the final round, and in the last hole or two, before I've seen any of the commentary, in my head I was thinking Kevin Jones is playing a little bit conservatively. Mm-hmm. He's playing a little bit timid, a little bit safe. And that allowed Calvin to play aggressive and get the win over him. And now there's a whole conversation. Did Kevin Jones play too safe? Was that a bad call? Did Calvin win the tournament, or did Kevin Jones give it away? And I'm curious, you're shaking your head now.
I don't think Kevin gave it away. He played that way the whole tournament. He I think he even was quoted in one of the interviews saying something similar to this, but he was playing simple hyzer drives as much as possible so that he could be consistent, and he was relying on his putter upshots, basically, relying on his mid-range putter upshots, and those were just working really well for him. So he wasn't being super aggressive. He was still getting chances at birdies, and I think if you look at the very last hole of the tournament, he went for it, right? Calvin,
he did, yeah.
Calvin threw his drive and barely made it past the cart path. Like,
kind of got lucky.
Barely in bounds. Got the green flag. Holy cow! And
on the lip of the bunker.
And Kevin goes for it. Kevin did not have to do that, and he got pushed down by the wind and went out of bounds. And basically that was what kind of sealed it right there, right? I mean, he had a great approach from there. He hit the top of the basket. He almost got it, which would have been an awesome pressure to put on
sick.
Calvin. Yeah, I mean, that would have been amazing. But that was basically it right there. So I don't know. I don't think he played too conservatively. I think he was playing his game, and I think it worked for the most part. And I think it came down to the last hole.
I agree. One thing I would recommend to people who can't get enough of that goddamn disc golf, Brody Smith has, I hope he does more of this in the future. He did a video where he watched the final round of coverage from Jomez live on YouTube with chat, and he just broke it all down because he's like, I haven't seen this, so I don't know what happened. And so he's watching and commenting on the entire round. So it's a really fun way to watch, especially if you haven't watched the round and you want to watch it with somebody else. It's kind of a fun way to do it too. But he's commenting on Kevin Jones, and Brody comes down very hard on the fact that Kevin Jones played very smart and played very well. He went for it when he needed to. On the shots where, like, he's saying Kevin Jones doesn't have the distance that, a Calvin Heimberg has. Mm-hmm. So on the holes where he's attacking, it makes sense. The holes where he's playing safe, it makes sense. So I tend to agree with Brody's take on things, and especially rewatching the round. Like, it seems like Kevin just missed some shots, and Calvin made a lot of shots in the final round. Yeah, and that's what made the difference.
Calvin had the RNG in his favor, man.
Oh wow, way to bring it full circle. So speaking of RNG, I guess the last thing to talk about in the Las Vegas Challenge is Anthony Barella and the spotter situation. So to recap, we mentioned it earlier, but this is hole 10 in the final round. Anthony's still in the mix. He's kind of behind a little bit, it's not a situation where this is make or break, in my opinion, but it does suck. He is leading off the card on hole 10, driving out of a small gap. It's a long hole. There's a few bunkers that are out of bounds, and by the bunker, it's like a 720-foot hole. Mm-hmm. The bunker's like 550 feet out.
Way the fuck out there is where it's at.
It's in Egypt. And so there's a camera guy and a spotter out there. And obviously they don't think that he's going to make it to that distance.
Spoilers,
but he does. And basically the spotter never sees the disc because, of course, he's trying to spot the distance. He tries to get out of the way of the disc. It doesn't. It bounces into his ankle. He and the disc both fall into the bunker. That's out of bounds for Anthony. He gets a stroke penalty. And the big conversation after this is just how does this keep happening? What needs to happen going from this? So I don't know. What's your overall take here, Matt?
Okay, a few things. One, that guy should be forgiven. It is what it is. It happened. It sucks. Anthony threw in the direction of a bunker and had a chance of going in there in the first place. I think if you've got a strong mental game, you get past that. You say, it just went in the bunker. Sounds good. Whatever. Moving on. Try to get a par here. I don't think it was the reason he didn't win. I don't think he was storming ahead or anything like that. And that was what, catapulted him the opposite direction. So it is what it is. I think that rules could be established, could be improved in these kind of situations where a clear-cut, inbounds disc gets interfered with. You say it's inbounds and you make the lie a meter from the edge of the bunker or whatever. I think that's a great improvement. I think that would be something, especially if you're going to have, and of course you're going to have these kind of people on the course, whether they're trained or they're volunteers, it doesn't matter. This is still going to happen, so you need to have some sort of way to address it.
I would even go so far as to say the best rule for right now where the game is at is to say if it gets interfered with, you always side on the player. You always say, let's call it inbounds.
I think, so where it gets tough is spectator courses where there's often lines that go over out of bounds and come back into bounds. So if you always throw it into that crowd, do you get relief because of that?
Yeah, I guess that's true. That comes down to then course design. Because I agree with you, what you said initially, where if you as a player are bringing an out-of-bounds part of the field into play,
yeah,
then you kind of have to live with that.
It's now your choice. Yeah. So Katrina Allen had a shot this weekend or last weekend that she pulled a little bit right, and it would have been okay, but there was a golf cart sitting over there, kind of not out of bounds, but way off to the side, and it hit that. No, it was out of bounds. It hit that, and
it was out of bounds. Yeah,
it hit that, and it didn't get back in bounds. So it wasn't a good shot, and it wasn't where she wanted to go. And it would have been inbounds, but it had an unfortunate circumstance. That sucks. It is what it is. You just have to deal with it, right?
Yeah. I think that makes sense. Like, it's that specific situation is being brought in here because there were like 3 or 4 events like that over the course of the weekend on coverage. And that one in particular, I'm like, I don't care. Like, to me, it's like, if you hit something out of bounds, just call it out of bounds. I'm all in favor of rules being very clear. So I would be of the opinion that if you hit something out of bounds, you're out of bounds.
Yeah.
And that will change how people play holes. It's like, okay, I can't go big hyzer out of bounds. Or I can, but I know the risk going into it.
I think disc golf needs to reevaluate itself. So you're talking about course design. I think it needs to reevaluate that too. So does it want to be... You can't have people standing out in fairway landing spots for holes in general. You just can't do that. They need to be by the tee. They need to be by the green. That's it. You can't really have anything in between. And so there's a lot of courses that have these cool viewing areas that are in those areas that could come into play, and that's what makes it difficult. So I don't know what the answer is.
Well, in the same way that, it was only a matter of time before you had a Prodigy suing a Gannon Buhr, it's only a matter of time before one of these situations, like with Anthony and the spotter, happens like at the highest stage in the crucial moment.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have a real hard time from the Disc Golf Pro Tour side of things.
That's very true.
So either they need to figure it out, or they're going to be under a lot of fire when it finally goes really wrong. I mean, this happens in lots of sports. It makes me think a lot of, in baseball, it felt like, I don't know, like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there was a lot of stuff about players in the stands grabbing foul balls and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
And that really hasn't happened much. So it's just going to take something like that at a really high-stakes moment, and then I think they'll finally be like, I guess we need to come up with some rules or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that was the Las Vegas Challenge. Anything extra you want to add before we get into our final segment?
No. It was a good tournament. It was fun. Watch both FPO and MPO if you got the time.
Definitely. I'm so into it. I'm watching like a couple crappy little tournaments happening right now in a weekend in between when real things are happening. So
hey, absolutely. There's almost always something you can find, even if it's like a skins match or something.
I will say right now on GK Pro, there's some coverage by Joel Freeman and Casey White of some random little event that they're both part of, and they're good commentators. They're actually quite. It's good. I like it.
I have to check it out. I also, when I was watching the Las Vegas Challenge, Gatekeeper had some of the other cards, so you can just go. You can go watch some of the other people who you didn't get to see at all, which I like doing that too.
Yeah, totally. Just more professional disc golf to watch.
What's not to like?
Nothing. disc golf season. And how else to get into it than evaluating a course? So, the first option on the menu today, the Innova courses at the Las Vegas Challenge. Is it a birdie, bogey, or par?
I wish there was like an in-between par and birdie. I think they were good, not great, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I'll give them a par. I'll give them a par.
Nice, par.
There are other courses that I like more, but these were still enjoyable to watch.
I think that's a fair grade to give it. I would give it a bogey.
You don't like them, huh?
I don't know. So I'm wrapping around my first full season of watching disc golf on the pro scene. I did not watch this tournament last year, so this is my first time seeing it, and I think I kind of hate disc golf courses on ball golf courses.
Oh yeah.
And this one in particular, it's like high winds is just a part of the course, from what I understand. The grass is like glass with the way the discs skip over it, which I personally would enjoy playing on, but probably is not very fun for these guys.
I was going to say, I like seeing them have to play with different ground play scenarios, and there are players who are really good at manipulating it or knowing what to do, and there are some who clearly don't and miss things because of it. So I like that little bit of challenge. I do totally get what you're saying about ball golf courses as disc golf courses. I don't really like them in general either. It's definitely not. I don't know. They're generally too open for what I like as a style of disc golf course.
Right. Or at the very least, you don't have a good mix of different kinds of holes. I think this course benefits a lot from being the first course of the year. So I think I totally get where you're saying it's a par, because at this point
that's all I've got.
in the season, I'm like, wow, I love disc golf. Show me any course and I'll be happy to watch it.
So you're calling me a fucking idiot? Is that what you're trying to
say?
No,
I'm saying I get it. I feel the same way. I really had fun watching this, but I was like, if you play this course in the middle of the season, I'd be like, what the fuck is this? This sucks.
Yeah, fair.
All right, next up. Lava Axe, the Magic the Gathering card.
Birdie.
Good birdie.
Big birdie. Why is it a birdie?
It's 5 damage to whoever you want for 5. I mean, it's just simple, easy damage, baby.
It's a great, straightforward spell. It does 25% of your opponent's health.
It reminds me of my mom.
And yeah, mom's favorite, the only magic card she knows, to be honest. Next up, Gannon Buhr growing 2 inches and gaining 25 pounds of muscle in the off-season.
I give this a bogey because I don't think he gained 25. I don't think he gained 25 pounds. I don't see it. I think he's putting bullshit out into the internets. I give it a bogey.
I also give it a bogey. For me, it's not based on if I think it's fake news. It's I think this is unfair, even if it's true. I hate it.
I mean, the dude's gonna get bigger. That's definitely true.
Yeah, he'll fill out, and it's terrifying because he's just gonna get better at this game, which sucks for everybody else.
I don't know how I couldn't give this a bogey with the picture you chose.
Well, you can see the spin that I wanted to put on it for sure. It's a real close-in frame of Gannon's smiling, smug face.
He's very serpentine because you just get eyes and mouth.
Yeah, he kind of looks like Voldemort as described in the books. Next up, I already know
Bogey,
what to say here.
Get it out of here.
Rom the Vacuous Spider.
Yeah, I mean, in general, as a boss, I would still give it a bogey. It's not fun to play. It's not that... It's interesting, I guess, in the lore of the game if you go that deep, but if you don't go that deep, it's just a stupid spider.
Yeah, lore and location, Birdie for sure. Just evaluating it as the boss fight sucks. Yep. Awful.
Yep.
Maybe the worst boss fight in the game?
Probably. I'm trying to think what else would even be up there.
There's nothing to compete. This is kind of the only gimmick boss in Bloodborne.
Yeah, there's nothing, and it's even it as a gimmick boss is, I don't know. You still gotta fight stuff. It's not like you need a special tool or something, right?
No, it's as far as a gimmick boss, it's still a good boss fight.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just a testament to how good this game is. But
yeah,
bogey for Rom for sure, especially right now. We hate Rom in this house. Next up, Disc Golf Network's Don't Miss the Moment ad.
I don't think I saw this.
Okay, so I'm going to have to share it with you.
Look how excited everybody was for disc golf. Did you see that?
I did see it.
Yeah.
Oh, don't look at that.
It's, I don't know. It's a par or a bogey.
I don't like these in-between grades you're giving.
It's a bogey. Fine.
Yes. Good.
My wiener could have made a better ad.
Yeah, it's not great. The funny thing is, the same network has another ad where it's about selling tickets to live events, like come watch one of these tournaments. Mm-hmm. And the thing they do right in those ads is they're just showing real footage and showing you why you would be into it. Like, they show people going out for drinks, they show people like going to the field, and like real events and real coverage. And it's like, you don't need to do this fictional bullshit. Just show me real stuff, because there's so much to draw from. This ad misses the mark because they're like, I don't know, it's so fake, it's so phony. I hate it. Now this, I'm relying completely on you because I have no opinions. The Last of Us, both the show and the game.
They are both birdies.
Good, birdie.
The game is a birdie. It's complete, right? The show still has not completed, but we're pretty deep in it now, and it's been pretty great so far. So
as of early March, Matt approves.
Yeah, as of March 5th, 2023. Yeah, birdie. Absolutely. Go watch it. It's good. Go play it. Okay. Better yet, go play it first.
Yeah, I guess that's the way to go, because that one's done. Next up, HBO announces It Takes Two series.
This could be hilarious, or it could be terrible. I don't really know what to expect. The storyline is kind of absurd, and there is a very dark, weird, hilarious moment in the middle of it where you like sacrifice your daughter's stuffed elephant or something. So, I don't know.
We've covered this in a previous episode.
I don't know how to feel about this. I'll give it a par for now.
Nice par.
It's not something I would have sought out or ever suggested be made into a series or film, is what I'll say.
Okay, interesting. I will say I invented this completely. This is not a real thing.
Well, fuck you then.
See, here's the problem. That's very funny to me, but now I've opened up Pandora's box of you making stuff up for me.
Yeah. Huh?
So now I have to be suspicious of everything going forward. And so do you.
You're going to have to deal with it.
Next up, this is for real. Mama Webb's obsession with Cocaine Bear, the movie.
I don't know. I guess it's a birdie. She's a weird woman. I hope she enjoys the film. Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing much to say. She loves her B movies, and in this case, the B stands for bear, Cocaine Bear.
Yeah, it's such a over the top, obviously not real thing, but it could be good. I don't know.
Yeah, this could be fun. All right, I've got a lightning round for you, Matt.
All right,
we're going to be talking about nuts. So I'm just going to very quickly go through, and you just tell me birdie, bogey, or par, and you have 5 seconds to justify your reason.
Won't even need it.
Almonds.
Par. They're good. They're healthy.
Pistachios.
Birdie. Delicious, especially salted.
Pistachios. These are not pistachios. These are walnuts.
Walnuts. Par. They're good. They're meaty.
Interesting. Cashews.
Absolute birdie. Love a cashew.
Yeah, agree. Pecans.
I would give a birdie to pecans. Pecans are delicious, especially roasted and salted.
Macadamias.
If you throw them in a cookie, I'll give it a birdie.
Interesting. I would actually give this a bogey, because I think they're overrated.
Yeah.
Brazil nuts.
Oh, these are a bogey. Absolutely overrated.
Definitely. And lastly, peanuts.
So peanuts in the shell at a baseball game when you can throw the shells on the ground, birdie. Peanuts elsewise, par.
Interesting. I think these are the most versatile of the nuts, and also just generally good. So yeah. I think that's pretty good. All right. We have to say thank you to Flat Figures, who suggested the nut lightning round. It might have to become a regular staple of the birdie, bogey, or par.
Thank you, Flat Figures.
All right. Our first crack back at the disc golf pro scene. It feels good to be back.
It's simply the best.
better than all the rest. Can I give you one last surprise birdie, bogey, or par? And I'll hear what you have to say, and then we'll close out.
Sounds good.
Did you watch the final rounds on Jomez? I assume you did.
Yeah, of course.
The new Jomez theme song for this year. Birdie, bogey, or par?
Ooh, so we'll go deeper than this too. I give it a par. It's fine. I like last year's better, I would say. Well, how did you feel about the graphic, the interface in general this year, the changes they made?
I'm fine with it. I don't have anything real special to say. I do like their little out of bounds thing that they do with the little hazard thing. That feels good. Overall, I like it. Do you have something in particular that you are thinking of with their graphics?
So the big thing that I think is an interesting change is how they show scoring. So when they show scoring updates now, they show basically a real-time scoring update where it'll be everybody wherever they're at on the course and what their current score is. So it's real time. It's how, like, if you watched a ball golf tournament live, like, it's how you would see it. So it kind of makes sense in that way. But when you're watching post-produced coverage, I liked being able to see at 9 holes, this is where everybody was. This is actually how it compared. So I think it's just something I got to get used to a little bit.
Probably. I understand it, and it was funny hearing Nate Sexton try to defend that idea in one of the rounds of coverage. He was basically like, this is good info because this is what the players would know as they're playing this hole. So, you're in the final round, you're on the lead card, you're on hole 9, and the person you're competing against is already done. And so here's the info that you have. Or they're like 2 holes ahead or 3 holes ahead. Here's the info that you have. So it's trying to replicate what it would be like to watch it live. To me, it makes sense because that's what post-produced coverage is trying to replicate anyway. Like, the guys are watching, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it, even though they know what's going to happen. Like, AB hits the spotter on hole 10, and they're like, oh, no way. What? Oh, that sucks. And it's like, obviously they know that happened already. So the whole thing is trying to give you the experience of watching it as if for the first time. So to me, it makes sense why you would do it that way, because you're trying to replicate that experience. I think after a while, people will get used to it. I'll get used to it. I'll be fine with it.
Yeah. I think so too.
I will say the one thing I've been thinking about, because like I said, I've been watching GK and Gatekeeper and other various outlets for disc golf coverage. Most other coverage, when they do, like, they just have 4 bars at the bottom, the 4 people on the card, and their scores are constantly on the screen, which is kind of nice because I can always see where everybody stands in relation to each other. Jomez, I don't know if it was this way last season, but this season, you can only see when someone's throwing their score. And they always update. At the end of the hole, you can see where everybody stands, which is fine. But at a glance, it's hard to say, is this person doing well or not?
Yep. Yeah, that was a change this year, too. So, and I don't mind that as much because, like you said, they flash. Even after someone finishes a hole or something, they'll flash, who else is finished and where they stand. So
totally.
Yeah.
To me, it makes sense. Like, if you're broadcasting on TV, you kind of need to know the overall score all the time because you don't know when somebody's tuning in. When somebody's watching on YouTube, post-produced stuff after the fact, I think you can trust that they know the general picture of what's going on.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. I give it a birdie, I guess. It's all good to me.
What are we giving it to?
Jomez's new coverage.
Oh, yes. I give it the ball is still in the air and I have not seen it land yet.
Okay. Well, since we're not in the official segment, I won't pin you down to something. But just know that when we're actually doing birdie, bogey, or par, you must choose birdie, bogey, or par.
Or punishable by death.
That's true.
It's in the contract. Yep. I'll have my lawyers contact your lawyers.
All right, join us next time on The Drop Zone.